Hello, alright, you're listening to the Gritty Bowman, home of gritty bow hunting films, interviews, tall tales, and a wee bit of manly boasting.
I'm South Cox, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowman.
In this episode of Gritty Bowman, we continue our discussion with South Cox, bowyer and owner of Stalker Stickbows and spot and stock mule deer hunting genius. This podcast has 3 parts, and this is part 3. In this podcast, we talk about South's Grow With Your Bow program, the weasel bow for kids, and we talk about the future of the hunting industry and the effects of a divided hunting community.
If you like this show, please go to our website at grittybowman.com and subscribe to this podcast and tell your mates and pals about us. Do us a favour and please take a moment to leave us a rating or a review on iTunes or on our YouTube channel. Send your questions and podcast ideas to grittybowman@gmail.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can see the video version of this podcast on our website at www.grittybowman.com.
All right, and we're back. So I want us to get into a discussion on traditional bows, starting with we both have young children and we want to get them into bow hunting.
Sure.
We want to make it fun.
Yeah.
And you have a couple of programs that are really good for that. We also have wives that also want to get into it. More than ever, it seems like there's a lot of women out there getting into archery and hunting in general.
Right.
And so having some products for them is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. So a couple of years, maybe 3 years ago, I started. I came up with a bow that I called the Bobcat, and it's essentially a coyote model bow, but the handle I scale it down slightly, make it a little slimmer for either a youth or a woman's smaller hand. And the main difference in this is that I did a program that goes along with this bow. I call it the Grow With Your Bow. And it's kind of geared towards starting youth or women out in the sport. And a lot of times what happens when you start shooting a bow, particularly with a kid, obviously they're still growing. So you buy, you spend the money, buy a kid a bow, and then 2 years later they've outgrown it. And then you're like, great, I just spent $650 on a bow and now it doesn't fit my kid anymore. Right. So with the Grow With Your Bow program, being somewhat concerned about the future of bow hunting, not somewhat, I think about it all the time. And I realize the value in bringing children and women into the sport, and to make a contribution to that, I came up with this Grow With Your Bow program. And what that is you buy a bow, and then your kid grows, or as they grow and they get stronger and need a heavier set of limbs, then you're able to send the old limbs back to me, and I will swap them out for you and give you a heavier set of limbs. And then I do the same thing for women, although they're not as likely to outgrow it. They may find that when they start, they're not as strong because you build those muscles up as you're growing and shooting and what have you. Not as you're growing, but as you're shooting. So you're able to do the same thing with women, and I'll make you a new set of limbs, and this is done at no charge. So you send me your old ones back, I'll send you a new set that are of heavier draw weight.
Okay, that is pretty sweet.
That's brilliant. So for the women, chances are they'll get the bow, they'll go, and they just get a wee bit stronger. So there may be one change in the limb. Right?
Sure.
But for a child, like I've got a 6-year-old Angus, right? He's this tall, and then they go through spurts. You've got kids. All of a sudden he's doing it, and he's getting bigger and stronger, but they grow in height wise, right?
Sure.
So the limbs for the kids,
For the Bobcat?
for the Bobcat, yeah, we call them bairns. the kids in Scotland.
Oh, the kids Bairns.
Oh,
I keep forgetting, 'cause if I don't, then he puts it on, he translates it on the thing.
Right.
I already probably have to put subtitles on everything you've said so far.
Self-conscious about it. Anyways, but kids will grow in height-wise, right? Sure. So then you'll make adjustments then?
Yeah, if you need to make adjustments in draw weight or in overall bow length, I can accomplish both of those with that bow. So that the Bobcat, this is a weasel, which we'll talk about this one in a moment here. Right. But in the Bobcat model is available actually from 52 inches to 62 inches. So I can there's 2 different handle lengths with the Bobcat, so I can make a couple of different, 3 different bow lengths with that one, and then the 15-inch handle will go from 56 up to 62 inches.
Okay.
So that will cover, I built a bow for Cody Kellum of Born and Raised Outdoors, and he's 6'2" or 3 or 4 or something way taller than me.
Big.
I know I get a neck.
I swear his arms are even longer.
So I think he's got like a 31-inch draw length, and he shoots a 62-inch bow. And does just fine with that. So your kid's not going to outgrow it. Yeah.
Skyline's real easy.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. He's awesome. Oh, I love that.
Okay, so how much are one of these weasels?
So the weasel is a 46-inch bow overall length. So it's my shortest one that I build, and it's available from 10 to 20 inches in draw length. 10 to 20 pounds in draw weight, and this one's $199, so by far, the least expensive bow in my line, and it's really a losing, money loser for me. But it's one of those things where I want to, get kids started in on archery, get them hooked on it when they were a kid. Yeah, I would have loved to have had something like this when I was.
Yeah, that is sweet.
Yeah,
I mean that is just sweet, and and the pink.
I can see our girls.
The purple.
Oh yeah. But
it just feels cool.
Is it different? Can you get different colors?
Yeah, so that's available in all of the different colors that the Actionwood model, our Actionwood comes in. So there's gray, green, brown, camouflage. There's charcoal gray. There's obviously the bright pink there, and then there's a handful of different options.
Okay, and people can see that on your site, right?
Yeah. So actually, I don't have it up on my site right now. I've got it in my new catalog, and there's a downloadable PDF version of my catalog on my website. So it is. You can find it there if you don't have a physical copy of my catalog in hand.
It's cool. So the Bobcat, typically for like someone who hasn't been shooting, let's say our wives, what starting poundage do you recommend?
Well, it's going to depend on the physical stature of the person, but
like his wife, very, 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 very short and
sure. So she might.
You might want to edit a couple of those varies out.
She might feel comfortable shooting, say, 25 pounds in draw weight. And then someone, who's got more arm strength
She's tough. She's just short.
Sure.
Yeah.
When she takes you to the ground, you'll be the same height. And
she's very pretty too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You better kiss up. No, but the point here though is with the you can change the limbs out, right?
Yes.
So this is it's $650 for the one.
Right. So this one's the weasel, but the Bobcat model, yes, the Bobcat model. If you start her out at 25 pounds so she can get comfortable, work on her form. It's not a big strain, physical strain for her to shoot it. So, she doesn't try drawing it back and decide, this isn't any fun. It's way too much like work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because it can be scary when you're pulling too much poundage and you're not comfortable with it.
Right. So you start her out light, let's say. She likes it. She's going to stick with it. She starts shooting more. She becomes... her muscles become stronger, and it gets to be like, wow, this is really fun, but it's too easy. I'd like to have greater arrow speed, so it's a little flatter trajectory. Right. I can shoot targets that are further out. My arrows aren't arcing as much. Then you call me up, say, hey, South, you know what? Well, I've got a set of 25-pound limbs. I'd like to get a set of 30-pound limbs. I'm going to send you back my old ones. Can you glue me up another set? I do that at no charge.
Oh, that's brilliant. See, that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that's just limited to the Grow With Your Bow program, and that is just limited to youth and women. So, unless you get a sex change, you're out of luck.
I'm out of, even though I'm new to the game, old foreign men are excluded.
Right.
And that's fine. I think it's brilliant because bringing in kids, like this is, I'm the first one in my family that's learning how to hunt.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm 48. I've been hunting a year. I'm a pretty 48. But I am excited to pass this American tradition on to my kids.
Sure.
Right? Wouldn't have happened if Call here wouldn't have helped me out, right? And I'm excited about it. And you doing this is a service to the hunting community, the public, and to the people, and I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, yeah, I want to give back, and I've got young kids myself that are coming up, and I realize the benefit in raising more hunters versus more non-hunters, or worse yet, more anti-hunters.
Or video gamers that can't even get out and walk.
Right.
Well, and it seems like right now we talked about this earlier, that there's a lot better films that are coming out that kind of tell more about the other reasons for why we hunt, other than just sport or trophy.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
Story.
Yeah.
And as I've become healthier, as I've tried to eat better and exercise and become more fit, I'm more concerned about my food and where it comes from and all of that. And there's a movement, I think, in the U.S. today where
on both sides of the fence, non-hunters and hunters, there's a thing. Hey,
and I've really noticed, especially like I do a lot of CrossFit and in this paleo sort of sphere kind of community, there's this discussion on your grass-fed beef, all the way down to your deer meat, and then farming your own food, but a lot of this movement toward a healthier lifestyle, and within that there's this recognition that yes, eating meat is part of being healthy, and so hunting is a viable solution for feeding your family.
Sure.
And it seems
and
like there's
feeding your family in a very healthy
exactly.
manner. Yeah.
And there has been, it seems like for a long time, a disconnect between the fact that hamburger was a cow.
Right.
And now as a hamburger, there's this part of society who doesn't recognize that an animal was killed to do that.
Right.
And so I think that reconnection has been taking place, especially as shows like The Meat Eater, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Sure.
It's like a cooking show and a hunting show in one, two of my favorite things.
Yep.
When he's cooking something that he just killed right there in the field, and he turns it into some kind of gourmet meal, it really, I think, really helps non-hunters see another whole side of why hunting is so important.
The non-hunters are seeing it because of health reasons.
Right.
They're seeing health, and then they're realizing, they're connecting it to the fact that cows all slammed together in some little pen end up breeding like dirt and disease, and it gets into the food, right? And so they're realizing that. So then they're like, whoa. And then you turn a sympathetic guy, and you're like, okay, hunting, okay. You get animals that are not injected with bloody steroids and stuff. And so people then have a different attitude when they look at hunters. And that's how you're going to change the attitude.
Well, we talked about it before, like the attitude toward hunters is in some ways been perpetuated by hunters, because we've not always put the best
face
toward the
on,
whole story.
Yeah, I think that what's going on, in this new breed of filmmakers, by and large, I think there's some people obviously, continue to be destructive with their behavior, but I think by and large, it's been a very positive thing for hunting, and there's a lot more artistic expression put into the filming and the effort. And I think what happened, before was there's so much glorifying of the kill, and people, so that's what people non-hunters equated hunting with, and especially anti-hunters. And instead, now you're seeing what we experience when we go out there. You're seeing, instead of just kill, you're seeing natural things happening. You're seeing, whether it be aspen leaves shaking in the wind, or a mouse going through grass, or you're seeing a rabbit, or you're seeing non-game animals, and all these experiences, and snow falling,
you
and
see when you're out there.
The beauty of it, and like what we want to portray too, and the family. That's one huge thing for me that drew me to it as well. Was, I can remember going, here's all these hard hunters, tough guys, and they love their wives and they love their families, and they love their God, they love their beliefs, and that was what really got me, And so that's when I say the whole story, that's the whole story of hunting.
At the same time, I have an ego, I think all guys, and some of the hunting industry, a lot of it can be very ego driven.
Oh yeah. Oh man, it's mostly ego driven.
It is. And so that's one thing that that has been, that's a bit of a turnoff, and I think is, that's where, like you said, some of the new filmmaking that's coming out, some of the film tours that are out there, they're doing a great job of telling another story.
Right, yeah.
And the ego-driven part of it is becoming less acceptable in a lot of circles, I think. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
When you were talking about how like some of the hunters are, you're harming yourselves because some of them do stuff. They give ammunition to people who are anti-hunting. Yeah. There's some people who are so anti-hunting, you'll never change them. What you want to do is just not change. You want to show, so that a majority of people can see exactly what hunting is about, okay? The whole story of it, right? And then then they understand and they accept it, right? There's always going to be idiots, right? There's those idiots you can't do anything about, right?
Did you just call somebody idiots?
Idiots, right? But then there's some hunters that are idiots, okay? And they're the ones that give the antis, stuff to, hey, look, they were killing people all over, killing, animals in droves, instead of being, good hunters and obeying all the laws and all that.
Well, one thing that I heard when I had your DVD, when I watched your DVD not too long ago. By the way, there's a cool part on there, how you create your bows, which that was pretty cool. Get the details on that. But you also talked about how there is a bit of a division among hunters sometimes. So here you are building traditional bows, shooting traditional bows, and
there's another customer.
One sec here. We'll break for a quick intermission.
Okay, we're back on track here. So I was telling you that in your video, you talked about how they're within the hunting community, between rifle hunters and bow hunters and traditional hunters and traditional bow hunters and compound bow hunters. There's these divisions that happen. And in your message inside that that you gave was basically that the hunting community, we should all be together because we're all hunters,
right?
And we have enough outside that community, the non-hunting community, putting pressure on us that we can't afford to be divided,
bickering amongst ourselves. Yeah, by all means. I mean, a classic example of that is we just lost bear hunting last year in California, and I remember talking to another hunter that is a deer hunter, and so obviously has no issue with hunting, but is like, I'm not really into hunting with dogs, and I'm not sure which way. Boy, did that even come down to a vote? I think it was decided with the legislature. Yeah. But in any case, there have been things where it's come down to a vote, like for mountain lion hunting. The last time that was up, it was voted down. We lost by 52 to 48 margin. And I mean, that's pretty darn close, especially when you consider a liberal state like California. I'm surprised that we garnered that kind of support. But to go back to the bear issue, so here you have a guy that is a hunter that feels like, well, I don't really think that you should hunt bears with dogs. And what he doesn't realize are a number of things. By not supporting hunters, or by not supporting the dog hunting, what he has done is he's taken a bear population in California that is already, even with our current game management, or what then was our current game management practices in place, the bear population extremely healthy, continuing to grow steadily, and then they've taken away their biggest management tool. And so now, for the first time ever, we didn't hit our bear quota. So what's going to happen what has already happened is there's more bears left over, more bears to breed. So next year there'll be more bears, which will create more bears. And bears, predation loss is the biggest factor in fawn recruitment. Right. And so now that we have more bears, there's going to be fewer fawns, which is going to affect his deer hunting directly. Yeah. And he's not connecting these dots that, maybe he doesn't support bear hunting with dogs in theory or in practice, but what he doesn't realize is that this is a viable management tool that we're using to keep the balance of nature in check. And now the scale is getting weighted more heavily on this side than it is on this side, so that balance is going to get knocked out of skew. And just a quick thing to point out about bear hunting with dogs, I personally had my own thoughts about that before I ever went on a bear hunt with dogs, and I figured it was going to be just like the way they make it out, the anti-hunters make it out. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Well, I've been on 3 bear hunts with dogs and have not killed a bear. And every one of them has been physically demanding and strenuous, and it's by no means is it any kind of a slam dunk. Yeah. And after those experiences, I gained a whole different take on bear hunting with dogs. For one, it was extremely exhilarating. I'm not a dog person or a pet person or anything like that, but listening to the dogs on the chase and how excited they get, and it's contagious, and you get in there and listening to the hounds howling, and it's a unique experience, incredible experience.
They've evolved for this. They've been bred for this. They live for this.
Right.
And if you haven't been around dogs or worked dogs, or you don't realize that it's part of them feeling like fulfilled.
Sure. And just like us as hunters, it's the same thing.
And so, I think often there's this misconception that dogs, that if you use dogs for hunting, it's abusive to the dogs, or if it's cruel to the animal, or it's too easy. Stephen Ranella did his meat eater show on hunting cougars, mountain lions with dogs. And I think there's 2 episodes, or he'd gone like multiple times now, and hasn't killed one yet.
Right.
And he was like, well, this is way, way harder than I had in my mind.
Yeah.
Hunting a cougar or a bear with dogs is not like you just walk out and then you're taking all this advantage of them. It takes years of training those dogs, working those dogs, teaching those dogs, getting to know. The houndsman has to get a feel for his dogs, and it's this partnership, and all of that stuff. It gets lost when you shut it down, when you don't allow it, because you make it illegal, and it's a shame. I think it's a shame for the dogs. I think it's a shame for the deer population.
It'll come back. It'll come back, because what will happen is there'll be too many bears. Then bears will be in everybody else's back bloody yards. And then people will start going, what's going on? Why do we have too many bears? And then they'll finally understand the relationship between dogs, bears, hunting. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily hunt with dogs, all right, with bears. I mean, but I have an understanding that you need to keep populations in check, okay? And if that's how the state here keeps them in check, then they check the numbers. If there was too many bears being killed and bears were not being seen, then they would cut back on the amount of tags that were allowed to hunt bears with dogs.
Well, part of it is having game objectives, right? I mean, there's a lot of people in California. There's a lot of folks who are anti-hunting, and they would. unfortunately.
That's because they live in cities, right? But that's what I'm saying. Eventually, the bears are going to go in the city, and then
Well, here's the irony of that. You know, anti-hunters put pressure on their legislators, and we have anti-hunters within our legislation that made these changes. And what they're not realizing is, okay, if you look at the mountain lions, for example, we haven't hunted mountain lions in California since 1970. So it's, you know, almost my entire life. I was 1 year old when Ronald Reagan banned mountain lion hunting, when they put a moratorium on it. So for 45 years, their population has not been hunted. And what has happened is that, you know, anti-hunters, by voting down that mountain lion initiative to get them back to being managed by the game management. So what essentially happened was politicians were making biological choices, you know, on game management by emotion rather than by sound management. And what is happening now is the Fish and Game is having to go and spend their resources, financial resources, and they are killing the mountain lions. So
they still get killed one way or the other.
They're still getting killed. Yep. And it's kind of on the down low, on the hush hush. But these,
same thing
they're
happens
doing
in Oregon.
Yeah, they're having to kill them with depredation, you know, by government trappers or like that. And so now, instead of hunters paying money for tags and going on hunts and bolstering the economy by spending money on gas and groceries and hotels and what have you, now instead we're taking our tax revenue and we're paying a government trapper to go and do the job that hunters could be taking care of and could be benefiting their economy. I mean, but in the end, the same result is happening. Mountain lions are dying. But the fact is that it could be done. They're dying and getting pitched in the garbage, versus someone being able to take the meat home and eat it. And yes, mountain lion meat is edible.
Yeah, tastes like chicken.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it's pretty good, actually. I heard it's really good.
Yeah.
Or pork is what they say.
That's why. Well, there's all sorts of things that the government should be sticking their heads in.
Yeah.
They should be going to people. Well, I'm an educator. They're going in and they start saying, "Oh, you need to educate like this," but they do not know how to educate. Sure. Let educators set the system up. Let hunters and the guys that, like Anthony, the guys that do game and fish, let them manage the stuff that they know about. Right. And there's other things too.
So, as a traditional hunter, do you encounter this very often? Is it less now than it used to be, where people, where other hunters are like, they're a little bit of snobbery because of the fact that they might shoot a traditional bow when this guy shoots a compound, so he's not as good as me. And
I liken it to the fly fisherman versus the bait fisherman or spin caster. Yeah. And it's unfortunate that this exists within our ranks, but guys are elitists and that happens in anything. But the unfortunate part is that nobody's lobbying to get rid of golf, or other activities like that, and we're facing a real threat against our pastime. Yeah. And I'm reluctant to call it a sport because to me it's not really a sport, Yeah,
I know what you mean too. Like calling it a sport.
Yeah, our lifestyle. Yeah.
That's what I see is the whole story. It's a lifestyle.
Right. So, if we, instead of bickering amongst ourselves, would band together and work in unison, then we would have so much less of a threat against us. If we would have gotten together with the houndsmen and worked with them versus not supporting each other and saying, oh, well, I'm a hunter, but I'm not like that guy. Yeah,
it's power in numbers.
Right. And by the same token, if you, as a traditional hunter, we have to realize that we need rifle hunters and compound hunters, and we need collectively the strengths of everybody, because as traditional bow hunters, we don't have the power or the numbers to lobby for anything, really.
So
we can't make fun of rifle hunters anymore then.
I know, like it's true that like Anthony shot a traditional bow for a long time. His biggest blacktail, and it's a big blacktail. He shot with his traditional bow, and his recurve, and he's had a heck of a success streak with his recurve. But then he went through a slump, and then he ended up going back to a compound because he really wants to kill animals. So sometimes what he'll do is he'll bring both bows, and then he'll be like, but the compound's in his back pocket, you know? And then he ends up using the compound.
It's really hard to be successful with a stick bow when you have a compound on your back.
That's what happened with when I went to Alaska and I was hunting bear. You can use a rifle or a bow. So I'm hunting with a bow, but I got my rifle back, and then pretty soon it's like I'm bringing out the rifle,
Right.
And the day I shot my bear, I did shoot a bear with a rifle. I could have shot it with a bow. It was 20 yards away.
Sure.
And it's like, but at the same time, did it really matter?
Yeah,
which one I shot it with?
Right.
It was like, by the time I got to the end of that hunt in Alaska, I was happy with doing it with the rifle. I mean,
sure.
So I want the challenge and I want the experience, but I sometimes think we get caught up in maybe ego or why we're doing it,
right.
How we did it, more than just out there enjoying ourselves.
I struggle with it's hard for me when somebody talks to me, and they know, most guys know now I'm shooting a stick bow, and guys that I talk to that also hunt with a stick bow, but then maybe they dabble and do both, and I'll ask them how their season went. And did you shoot anything? Oh yeah, I shot a nice buck, but I shot with my compound. And you can see this tone of voice change, and it's like,
not as good
what? We shouldn't have to feel like we need to apologize or feel it's lesser because we did something, maybe because we felt like we took the easier route or something. It's like, hey, you shot an animal with a bow. That is a rifle. I would hate to have to rifle hunt, because I think it's a heck of a lot harder than bow hunting to a degree. You get out there in October and try to find a mule deer. Find a mule deer.
That's what I was going to say. Is Anthony started rifle hunting when he moved to Idaho recently, and he started taking his kids out, and he's like, Brian, and there was a while, like 10 years ago, he was telling me, I just have no desire to pick up a rifle, zero, no desire to hunt with a rifle, and I don't care if anybody else does. I just don't have it. But now he's like, he goes out with his kids and he's hunting, and he's coming back and he's like, Brian, hunting with a rifle's fun. Like, we went out and we got an elk, and I went with my daughter, and he goes, this year I went out and hunted. He's like, and it's not as easy as I was thinking it was.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not the rut when you're drawing a rifle tag, and it's a whole new ball game. It's cold. You're hiking through
snow. And those
snow
animals figure out real quick when those guns start going off.
Do.
We're heading for thick cover.
Yeah.
And we're not poking out in the light of day.
So, it all comes back down to, sticking together and valuing. You're right. I don't think you shouldn't have to apologize because you shot your animal with a rifle instead of with a compound or
a recurve or a compound, but not your.
Well, I won't have a bother with that. I mean, I plan to get one of your bows, and I'm gonna. But I mean, I've just started shooting with a compound bow, and my thing, I want meat in the freezer.
Sure.
And I will.
Well,
I'll try. I'll try with it. But if I can whack it with the compound, I will be just as bloody happy.
Oh yeah.
I'm totally guilty of this, where I shoot when I go out. If I have a freezer that's chock full of meat, then I'm holding out for this big bull, or this big buck.
Nothing's wrong with that.
When my freezer's empty, it's like. I can't. It's hard for me to pass up on any animal that walks by that's legal, because I'm afraid I won't fill my freezer.
Right.
And so I like having my freezer full so I can trophy hunt, quote unquote.
Yep. No, I'm with you totally.
Wrong with that. That's a good thing. That's a brilliant way of doing it.
But I've gotten to the point where having the meat in the freezer is just I got to.
Yeah,
I got to have
it's a
it.
big importance. Yeah.
Last night, that mule deer you cooked was awesome, and still got to figure out how you did it, because I've cooked mule deer before, Oregon mule deer, and it does not taste as good as my Oregon blacktail.
Yeah.
Not even close. This mule deer you fed us was
It's good stuff.
tasty.
Yeah.
It was freaking delicious. I decided to hunt mule deer.
Mark's all in now. He's like, I'm
Yeah, made a believer out of it.
Well, that's why I hunt elk.
Yeah.
I got elk meat from him, and I'm like, and the kids ate it.
having steak.
Bloody hell! Where do we get this? It's not safe. We are, Fred Meyer's and Albertsons. Gotta go to the woods.
Yep.
So I'll be checking out Nevada now. I'm gonna try and start and do that, so I can get there early and get that.
Yeah. Well, South's got to go. He's got to get going. We got to get going. We got to drive back to Oregon. Yep. So I want to thank you for having us up here this weekend and feeding us and showing us your shop. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
And
My pleasure. It's gets awfully quiet around here. Only this fly keeping me company.
But I gotta say, what you make it's my bloody artwork. Okay,
thank you.
They're absolutely beautiful. And I'm a stonemason, and I'm talking about wood. But I'm telling you, I'm so impressed. I mean, and it's top quality. Top quality.
It's something I really enjoy doing, and I think, when you have something that you're passionate about, you do a better job.
Oh yeah. Going to work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's really cool.
You're blessed. That's brilliant. I'm glad you're doing it. And especially what you're doing with the kids and the bows and that. I think that's just.
I know this is I wish we could talk for. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. Like, yeah. Well, like, South was mauled by a bear. That's something that people might want to go Google or something, which I couldn't find very many good, well-written stories. Your first-hand account was better, but that'll have to come another time.
All right. Yeah, we'll have.
And bears have bad breath, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, bears have bad breath.
Yeah.
All right. It's a wrap. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
That's brilliant.
We want to thank South Cox for taking the time to do this podcast with the Gritty Bowman. And we want to thank everyone who is listening or watching and supporting the podcast. For those of you who are interested in learning more about South Cox and about how he builds his bows, we will be posting a short film interview of South with some candid, in-the-moment bow building video footage that we took while we were visiting. We hope you like that little short film. I was blown away by the craftsmanship displayed in a Stalker Stickbow, and I hope you can see that in the short film. The short film of South should be up on our website in the next day or two. I want to thank everyone again for following our show. Please take a moment to go to iTunes and give us a rating. It really helps bring awareness to our podcast. Be sure to check out our website for the show notes for this podcast. And as always, be gritty.